2026. This year. That is where all of this begins. The war, the bombs, the production of the security droid. This is not familiar to you. I don't expect it to be. This information was taken from a universe parallel to yours. However, if you are not careful, humans will fall to the same fate that those in this universe did. So, before we begin, grab something to drink and take a seat. This is a rather long story. The beginning of the Third World War was quiet, swept under the rug. To many, this war was the final war. Even in the beginning, there was a pressure that the whole of every continent felt. On the outside, it looked like tensions were rising. On the inside, war had already started. Similar to your own universe, artificial intelligence was evolving at a rapid rate. But despite what the public believed, there was more to this than the AI therapists or chatbots. More than just image generators. No, the issue had already spread far past that. And so began the first mass production of droids, specifically the security droids. They were war droids designed to kill. The military was more careful than you would think for a time of war. They understood the danger of their enemies turning their droids against them. They could not risk it. So came the Prime Directives, and for your sake, I will not list them all here. There are 150 of them. To give you at least a general outlook on them, the first few cover a lot of basics that were necessary. Number 1. Obey orders from your commanding officer. Number 2. Under no condition can you modify your programming. Number 3. Under no condition can any other droid modify your programming. Number 4. Orders from any member of our military are of higher authority, provided your commanding officer is non-human. Number 5. If you are captured and see no reasonable solution to escape, self-destruct. These go on, and they only get more specific from here. The hardest ones to define, and the ones that there are the most of, are the ones regarding when a droid should take a human life. Even so, these droids were deadly. Within this, an individual security droid had two options for weapons. They had one for close-range combat, known most commonly as a shock stick. This weapon, on its own, was deadly. On one end, you have a two-prong design, made to be able to shock someone, and on the other end was your blunt end, which acted more like a spear, or just something to whack someone with. The second option was a variety of guns. While in the military, the security droids mostly carried assault rifles and more precise weapons. Later, in their time serving civilians, they carried handheld pistols. The security droids were also known for their durability and shock resistance. They were military droids after all, so it's no surprise that of any droid series, they had the best shock resistance and liquid resistance of all droids. Considering this, they had a few limitations. Speech was not a priority, and this is why they only have a vocabulary of around 50 words. Other limitations were that their power cells only lasted 2,500 minutes, which is around 41.7 hours. This was not because battery power was not a priority. In fact, they had to invent a whole new battery for these droids because of how much power their systems took up. There's one thing I failed to mention here: self-destruct capabilities. Unlike your typical self-destruct tendencies you might see, these droids did not explode. They had a program that set off a chemical reaction in the lower part of their backs and would overheat their body and fry any last piece of circuitry within them. You see, when doing tests on explosions, the military found it unreliable. There's a risk of something salvageable being left behind, and they could not risk that. So, this self-destruct capability was created. Once the droids began working for civilians, they had this ability removed. However, it still could be activated if the compartment that held the contraption was tampered with. Among their features, however, was their ability to instantly communicate with a secondary droid known as the surveillance droid. The initial droids were installed with AI systems, however, for cost-cutting reasons, the system was removed with the update of hover technology. For these little surveillance droids, the security droids have a magnetic lock on their shoulder, which the other droid can attach itself to and release itself from, whenever it or the security droid chooses. This shoulder lock was initially designed after they realized that they could not fit a full power cell into these little surveillance droids without them being too bulky or heavy to fly. So the shoulder lock was designed as a moving charger for the little droids. The surveillance droids themselves had multiple camera types to see through. They had the ability to see in infrared, which was very useful for the little droids. The only other droid with this ability was the RA series, which is another type of security droid, although not made for the military. Another thing of note, at this time, security droids were separated between two types. There was a solo droid who worked together with its individual surveillance droid to scout ahead, fly military planes, operate other machinery, and later used in main battle. These scouts were messengers and spies who had one human commander that led a group of up to 20 or 30 of them. The second type was the ones that worked as a squad. These were groups of 4 to 7 droids with one commanding droid leading them. These droids were the main army men and the large machinery operators. Between the group of them, they shared one surveillance droid. Any one of the group could see what the surveillance droid was seeing at any time. Despite all of these droids' capabilities, the general public wasn't widely aware of their existence until the dust had settled on the Third World War, which it wouldn't do until 2031. Until then, the military had plenty of use for them. It was an expensive endeavor, one that was quickly swept under the rug with the rest of the accumulated debt. The droids did as best as they could, and faced little pushback other than from those they were fighting against. The other side developed their own droids as well, but I won't get into them here, or this would be far too long. 2029 rolls around. The war is brought to the public's attention. The public is infuriated. This is what you've been spending our money on, they ask? You should have made peace. But by now, even the public knows it's too late for that. So more pressure is put on the military to get the war over with. The military panics, and their enemy nearly destroys them. This is the last straw. They do not want to lose. So, they use the weapon they've been holding back for years. The year is 2031. The bombs hit the other side of the world, killing nearly half of the human population, and any remaining droids that were sent over. The landscape turns toxic, and ignoring the plethora of other issues that have just been created, the military wins. I could lie and tell you they all lived happily ever after, even if they didn't. Even if the large majority of the population lost someone in these bombs. Even if the planet would try to kill them after this. But I won't. The public was furious. The military was dismantled, but not completely removed. And nobody knew who had given the order to send the bombs. If anyone had been blamed, they would have probably been killed. So when all was said and done, the military had a bunch of security droids lying around, waiting for their next directive, so they sold them to the general public. And by this point, the only other droid to protest was the RA series. They were cheaper, sturdier, and overall a better option in their minds. They didn't talk much, and that was all that was needed. Unlike the RA series. So, that concludes the story for today. I will mention a few things, however, regarding the differences between this droid and any others that I've gone over in the past. Unlike any of the series, the security droid never had a decommission date. While they had many directives, nobody ever considered that they'd die in any other way than battle, and a lot of them did. Still, there's much more that happens to these droids after this point, so if you want a part 2, please tell me. I'm sure this is going to be at least a month before I finish this, so thank you for sticking with me until the end. Also, fun fact, I'm going to release a full animation. Future me will tell you when. And it is a music video style story. I'm really excited about it. And originally, I was going to post it before this, until I realized just how long it was going to take, and I understood the fact that I needed more long-form content on this channel. Alright, have a good day, night, and if you're watching from another universe, can you please contact the Alien Space Force and turn yourself in for watching interdimensional content? Thank you.